I'm at Maryland Ensemble Theater today on their set of Boeing, and they've graciously allowed me to come here today and film my video because it actually concerns what you should do or not do when auditioning for theater in the theater space when they've got a show up and running. Okay? So I want to talk about some do's and don'ts about that, and also build on a video that I shot a few months ago about staging your theater audition. I wanted to give you a few more tips to think about when you're in this kind of specific audition environment. Okay? So, let's get started. Okay, somebody's already inside auditioning and I'm up next, alright? So what that means is I have a few moments before I go in to do my audition piece. Now hopefully the monitor has told you that you are the next person in line, so you'll be on deck, as they say. That should give you a few seconds to sort of do your last minute preparations before you go in. You need to do things like make sure your cell phone is off. God forbid that thing should go off in your pocket while you're on stage. And better yet, if you can leave your stuff out here in the waiting room, you should do so, either with a friend, an acquaintance, or even with the monitor. In all the years that I've been auditioning, I've never heard of anybody having their stuff stolen at an audition. I would leave it out here so you don't have to worry about it or forget it after you're done with the audition when you come out and have to go back and get it. So lastly, of course, is to make sure you have your script in your hand for your sides. Now, of course, if you're going to be doing a monologue that's prepared, obviously you're not going to need that. But if it's from the play or they want you to bring in something, make sure you have your stuff ready to go. And I've shot a video on that called How to Prepare Your Audition Sides that you should take a look at. Okay? So now they're going to call my name and I'm going to enter onto the stage. Okay, so let's pretend that I've never auditioned for this theater before, but I do know that this theater performs in this space. So as I'm walking in from the door, I'm taking in a lot of information at once. So let me break it down for you, okay? The first thing is the space itself. This theater holds a couple hundred people, tops. It's got a low ceiling, and it's very acoustically live in here. So I'm going to need to make sure that my performance matches the space, that I either turn the volume up or down energy-wise so that my voice and my acting choices are appropriate for the size of the space. Next, over here in the main part of the theater, will be the director, their assistant, the producer, casting director, and so on, behind the table, about to watch my audition. One thing I advise you not to do is to go over and shake their hands. Think about it, guys. If they're going to see 100 actors today, they're going to have to stand up and shake hands with 100 different people, and that gets old in a hurry. Not to mention the fact that they're going to have 100 people's germs on their hands, and I'm sure they don't want that either. So when you walk in, if they catch your eye immediately before you get on stage, acknowledge them, hi, how you doing? And you're going to be coming around this way. The last issue to take in, of course, is the fact that there's a set here to deal with. It's not a blank stage. They're obviously running a show, and so we've got doors and windows and some set pieces here on the stage itself. And that presents its own particular pitfalls and things to watch out for. Okay? So I'm about to walk onto the stage, and as I'm doing so, getting ready to do my intro, the last thing I'm looking for is, where's my light? All right? Traditionally, when you go into audition for a theater, they're only going to have their work lights on, like these. They're not going to have the stage lights on because it's too expensive to run them for hours and hours like this. So as I'm walking out, I'm also sort of taking in the light environment. Are there dark spots on the stage that I need to be aware of? If so, I'm going to have to make sure I can reblock my audition if I had planned on using that area. All right? So now, I'm going to walk on stage and I'm about to give them my introduction. Okay, so now I'm on stage, and I see that there's some pretty good light here, even from the work lights, so I know that my playing area here is pretty well lit. Now, one of the most important things about the audition to get it off on the right foot is the introduction. You're going to need to rehearse your introduction. Everything from saying your name to telling them what your piece or pieces are going to be, if you're bringing out a monologue that you've prepared. And, of course, if you're bringing in a piece of text, from the show itself, then you'll need to remind them, yes, I'm reading for this character, I'm doing Act 2, Scene 3, or whatever. But when you're doing your own monologues that you've brought in, really, honestly, all they really need to know is the character and the play and maybe the playwright. They don't need a long, involved explanation about, well, in this scene, my character John has just come back from the war, and he went out to buy a Coca-Cola, but he came back and his wife was... They don't care. They don't care. They just want you to do the scene. So you just say, hi, I'm playing John from The Life of John by Gus Johnson, right? That's all they need to know. But you need to rehearse it so it's smooth, okay? Now, in my other video about working on your theater audition, I talked about this thing back here, the chair. Always remember, guys, that when you walk onto this set, literally a set, and they've got a chair for you to work on, you're walking onto someone else's set, not the play they're doing, but the last actor who was here. And if the last actor who was here had left the chair in this position, you need to move it. And then just that little act redefines the entire space. It's now your set to work on, okay? Because before, that was the other actor's set. Now that actor may have been brilliant, or they may have stunk. You'll never know. But I can tell you for a fact that if you just sit in that chair as it is, they're going to remember the last actor who was there sitting in that same position. So you always must move the chair to a new position. Now, if you don't want to use the chair at all, get rid of it, okay? Now, this is where auditioning on the set of a show that's up and running becomes really important. You will never, ever, ever, ever touch anything that's on this set. You will not use any props. You will not use the furniture. You will not use the doorways or the windows. Anything. Think of it as being radioactive. If you touch or use any of that stuff, that is such a huge faux pas. It's so unprofessional that it will almost instantly throw you right off the possibility list of getting cast. All right? So, never ever touch anything on the set of a show that's up and running. All right? So, I've moved the chair out of the way. I've said hello. I've introduced myself, and now it's time for me to do my audition. Okay, so I'm just about to start my monologue, but there's still some more things to take in. As I've been up here and doing my introduction, I've also been looking at the space itself. Now, in my rehearsal for my monologue, I may have decided to use stage left a lot, but I look over there and let's say there's a couch over here or a coffee table. Well, now I obviously can't use that area, so I'm going to have to change my blocking around on the fly and make sure it's okay. Or if I looked over on the stage right, there's a spot where I usually do something in my monologue and it's dark. Once again, I'm going to have to work around that. I need to be aware of all those things up here when I start my monologue. Now these are some staging tips that I think are really important that will give your monologue the best visibility possible. The first one is never use the people behind the desk as characters in your monologue. In other words, don't perform to them, to their faces, to pull them in as a character, all right? Because that changes the fundamental relationship between you, the actor, and them, the producer or director. If I start to play my scene to them, suddenly it's me, the character, and them, the character, and I'm forcing them to participate and not allowing them to step back and evaluate my performance. Now you can still look in their general direction. What I usually do is pick a spot above their heads, so I'm looking full face at them, but my eyes are up here, right? And along those same lines, when I'm doing a monologue, I always make the characters I'm talking to, my own height, so I'm never looking down, unless of course it's, say, to a child, all right? Or someone who is obviously seated that I need to interact with. The reason I do that is so I don't drop my chin and my face down, and there might be shadows on my face, or they might not be able to see what I'm doing, okay? Another issue to take into consideration is when you have multiple characters you're talking to, say, let's say the scene is between me and my father and mother. I might start the scene full front here, but then establish my father over here, my mother over here. What happens for a lot of actors is they establish those characters too far off to the side, so they end up talking to Dad as if he's over here, or Mom as if she's over there. Your characters should more or less be at about I guess that's a 45-degree angle off of you, or a 30-degree angle. So if you're talking to your father, it's just to here, right? Or the other character would be here. So the director sitting in center stage can still see enough of my face, and it's not in full profile, okay? It's a little staging trick. Also, if I want to use the rest of the space, again, this is where knowing how large this theater is going to come in handy. I don't want to be shouting and shouting inside a smaller space that really won't be able to contain that very well. Likewise, if I was auditioning in a big theater, whispering would not be a smart move either. So, so you're going to be doing your piece in this area. Now, if you have two monologues, right? If you have to do one 90-second piece and another 90-second piece, you do the first monologue, and then if you need to transition into something else, like getting your chair for the next piece or so on, once again, guys, that needs to be rehearsed. You need to be able to flow from the end of your first monologue. So I'm going along and I finish that piece, and then I walk off and I pick up the chair and I bring it back, and then I come and sit down and I'm right into the next one. All that needs to be rehearsed, not on the fly, okay? So, you've done your monologue now and you're ready to wrap up. The last moment of the last line, right after that last line, take a moment, hold the beat, and then look them in the eye and you say, "Thank you very much." So I've just said thank you. And now one of three things is going to happen, all right? First off, the director may just say, "Thank you very much." If that's the case, with a nice big smile, you say, "Have a great day." And I head on out the door, and it's time to gather my stuff up and go home. The second thing that might happen is that they might give me an adjustment, right? He might say, "Sean, why don't you try doing that first monologue this way?" Or, "Let me see some more of this from the character." Now, obviously they're trying to see if they can work with you, right? Give you an adjustment. Are you directable? And whatever they may give you, and it may sound really odd, go for it. Give it your best absolute try. Sometimes they're trying to see, if you can take direction. Sometimes they're going to throw a curveball at you just to see if they can get you to try something they think might be a little on the edge for you. Whatever it is, give it a shot, okay? I've actually seen actors start to argue with directors at this moment when they say, "Bill, could you try it this way?" And Bill might say, "Well, my character really wouldn't do that." It's not about what Bill, the actor thinks about his character in that moment. It's about, are you directable? Now, the third thing that might happen is they might just start talking to you, asking you, "How have you been? What have you been up to?" Right? Now, when I field questions like that in this audition situation, the one thing I actually don't talk about is I don't talk about my acting work. I talk about my personal life. I say, "Oh yeah, well, my daughter and I, we're learning how to play checkers together." Or, "My wife and I have taken up samba dancing," or whatever. The idea is that, yeah, I'm a whole person. I actually exist outside the context of just being an actor. And it might also spark a different kind of conversation with the director, okay? Once again, though, those things can be rehearsed. You can have 3 or 4 or 5 little quick anecdotes that you can pull out, depending on what they ask you, that are funny or interesting. And like I said, they provide them with a different view of who you are as a person. So there you have it. Some do's and don'ts when you're auditioning for theater in their space while they've got a show up and running. I hope these tips will help you out on your next audition. And remember, you can find me online at SeanPrattPresents.com. You can also find me on Facebook or Twitter. Break a leg at your next audition.